Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. The very first thing on the agenda is a proclamation for National Farmers Market Week. We have Emma Lewis, Events and Programs Assistant and Farmers Market Coordinator, and Kitty Clark here, Community Events Coordinator, along with several other guests in the audience. And I would like to call up Corey Rohr, who is the manager of Valakilla.
Yes.
Good to see you.
You too.
And a lot of my friends from the market see me plenty. Usually see my face. We got John Goble from Milk and Honey Farms, Katie Waltz from the Waltz Family Farms, Don Litton, Litton's Berries Produce, Suzanne Lucas from Ferris Springs Farm, John Young from MK Candies, Debbie Sarek from Jeff Gene Voley. What? It is. I got my glasses on there. From Mama Jean Snack Shack, Summer Gilliam from Creative Creations. Okay, great. All right. I have a proclamation to read, and then if you guys want to say anything, you're more than welcome to. I'm reminded frequently that our farmers market is the oldest continuously run farmers market in the state of Maryland. So, the proclamation for National Farmers Market Week, August 5th to the 11th, 2018. Whereas the historic city's farmers market is the oldest continuously operating farmers market in the state of Maryland and operates every Saturday year-round. Whereas the historic city farmers market provides the citizens of the city of Hagerstown with access to healthy, locally and regionally produced food from throughout the region. Whereas the historic city farmers market has a variety of local vendors that offer made-to-order food, local produce, artisan cheeses, meats, honey, locally made goods, and more. And whereas the city of Hagerstown recognizes the importance of providing opportunities that assist and encourage the next generation of farmers and artisans and fostering connections throughout a community gathering space. Now therefore, be resolved with the support of the City Council, I, Robert E. Brucci II, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, Maryland, do hereby proclaim and recognize August 5th to the 11th, 2018 to be National Farmers Market Week. I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Okay, and anybody wants to?
They nominated me.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool.
I'd just like to say thank you to the council and the mayor for, on behalf of Valley Co-op, for allowing us to be in the space there. Things have been continually getting better, and we are expecting them to continue to get better as we go through the rest of this growing season. I've been very grateful for Emma's help in coordinating. We've done a couple of events there, and we've had everybody participate, and I think those events have been successful. And we're hoping to do at least one event a quarter, so we'll be looking to do a fall event in October. So thank you very much. We'll see. We're stirring some ideas around, so yep. Thank you.
Anybody else? Short? Well, thank you all very much for what you do and for being in our farmers market. I appreciate it very much. And hopefully one day we can get it back to the greatness that it was. Because it used to be a fantastic place to go when I was younger. I know there was some guy who was there like at Christmas time. Thank you guys very much. Okay, I got one more thing apparently I need to do.
Picture.
Can I get a picture? Okay, I'll go do it up there. Okay, this was sent in by Greta Likens. And it says, I have been working at Jeff and Deb's Grill for almost 10 years. Jeff and Debbie are considered family, and the city market is like home. I have watched babies grow into young, almost teenagers. If I don't work for a couple of weeks, I start to miss everyone. I don't have to work at the farmer's market. I do it because I love the people that come in faithfully every single week and have been for years. Jeff and Debbie treat me and everyone that sits down for breakfast just like family. We are blessed to have such an awesome family running the best breakfast stand you will find in the area. And it was sent to Kitty. So, thank you. You've done bigger groups than this.
Okay, everybody make sure you're looking at, you can see the camera, so I can see your face. Okay, here we go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and one more. Okay, 1, 2, 3, good smiles, 1, 2, 3. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, 2017 County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Here today with Tom Brown from the county's Department of Emergency Services. It was their operation that sort of coordinated this project, hired the consultant to come up with a 5-year update to the county's hazard mitigation plan. The city and all the other municipalities are part of this plan, and as being part of it, it makes us eligible for FEMA money in the event that we have some sort of disaster and seek federal assistance. And so this is time now to update from the 2012 plan to the 2017 plan. It went out to all last year. The consultant worked with a committee that the department put together that included representatives from various municipalities. They put together the draft plan. It was submitted to FEMA and MEMA. Took a little back and forth, but it finally was approved by them earlier this year. And then last month, the county commissioners approved the plan. And so now it's time for all the municipalities to also adopt a resolution saying, yes, this is in fact going to be our hazard mitigation plan too, so that we would also be eligible for FEMA money. So I didn't know how much more information you wanted than that, but that's basically why we're here. And we put the web on the city's planning page, a link to this document, which is rather sizable. And apparently it's also probably available on the county webpage.
That's correct. It's on the county webpage also.
What has changed that may be highlights of?
The biggest thing that has changed is really 2 of the projects. The one includes opioid epidemic because and there's some cyber projects listed in there. It's more being aware of the hazards, and they're kind of newer. They're Maryland initiatives. They are considered hazards that are affecting all the jurisdictions. As far as what the city's responsible for or what they have to do, you don't have to do anything and complete any of the projects that are in it necessarily. It's goals that are set. And again, as Kathy had said, in order to be eligible for some of the FEMA money, not just when disasters happen, but also after disasters happen. 10% of the total disaster money that is spent throughout the state is available back in mitigation project money. And if you have this plan adopted, you then become eligible to apply for that funding. So you can get some of your projects done if you want.
Sure.
So I just have to ask this question after reading this, and I know what the answer is, but since this is all promulgated on FEMA's, being able to gain FEMA support, is there FEMA money available for an opioid crisis?
Well, the hazard mitigation money that is available after that 10% that I was just talking about, you can set up a project to fight the opioid epidemic as it's part of this plan. And there should be money available for that, yes.
I mean, one of
We
our
do
goals are
already,
citizen outreach and crisis intervention, so.
right.
Well, I was thinking the same thing when I read this, because if that's a possibility now, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I saw Keedysville and Funkstown had identified those as hazards needing mitigation, as well as Washington County in general. I think we should, for the next go-around, I'd like to see Hagerstown identify that too, as a city.
I just have one question. On the staff memo where it says Hagerstown's identified top hazard risks, list number 1, the continuation of rental licensing in fire department neighborhood smoke detector programs. And then the second item, I'm assuming those 2 items encompass as well vacant and abandoned buildings.
Yeah, the goal being to try to make sure there's as safe from fires as possible. And those are kind of programs that help us monitor the buildings. And those are just examples of ways that we could be working towards the risks that we identified as being a priority.
Okay.
There could be other ways, but those were just examples.
Anybody else? We'll look to adopt a resolution at the end of the month.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming, Tom.
Invest Hagerstown grant programs.
So I'm here tonight as a follow-up to our July 10th work session, and we divided the funding for economic development grant money into 4 components. So since that time, we've developed recommended guidelines and application forms for each of the 4 components. So I'm going to walk you through that. What we would like to do in process is to review today and present for approval at the August 21st special session, if we're ready at that time. And then we would announce the programs and begin accepting applications after your approval. So the guidelines were developed based on the original First Third grant program in 2013. And you directed us to name the program Invest Hagerstown. So the guidelines and applications form all carry that Invest Hagerstown branding name. The review committee that helps us to review the partners in economic progress and other grant program applications helped in developing the guidelines and reviewing them. So this is a recommendation from not just myself as staff, but across department review committee. And pages 3 and 4 in the packet is where I'm going to spend most of the time, which is a summary of the guidelines, and I'll walk you through that. Pages 5 through 29 are the full guidelines and application forms that would be as presented to customers. On page 2 is simply the chart that we looked at back in July 10th and the funding levels that you designated in each of the 4 components. So the first thing I'd like to do is seek consideration of dropping the minimum grant level on the citywide grants from $10,000 to a $5,000 level. As we developed the guidelines, we thought consideration should be given to allowing smaller projects to participate. So this would allow a small $15,000 project to apply, recognizing a $5,000 grant and a $10,000 developer match.
Yep, I think we should lower it.
Yeah,
Okay?
I agree with that.
Sounds good. So next, I'm going to walk you through the guidelines and conditions of the 3 redevelopment rehab grant programs, which are the city center, the citywide, and the new rental rehab. I'm going to kind of go through them collectively and then highlight some of the collective guidelines as well as specific guidelines for each of the programs. On page 4, there is a summary of guidelines that apply to all three of those components. So that we're looking for projects that are not nonprofit projects, those would be ineligible. That acquisition costs would not be considered a part of the project cost, so would not count toward the match. We're looking for grant approval to be obtained prior to the start of a project, and a project could be defined as planned or in a pre-development, pre-construction phase. And I think that's an important guideline that helps us in the administration of these grants, that it's difficult to look retroactively on a project that may be already underway. That we would issue an approval letter that is provided to the applicant that helps them to secure project financing, and the grant is dispersed after the project is completed. So it's a back-end grant, and it requires the 2-to-1 match on all three of these components. If we look back on page 3, the requirements for both the city center and the citywide, that these both require commercial and mixed-use projects. In the original first third grant program, the 100% residential projects were ineligible, so we kept that in. And a correction to the document here is that we are not requiring enterprise zone participation. This is important to the PEP program because one of the benefits is a grant equal to taxes paid less any other tax credits. Because the benefits of these programs don't have tax credit components, we're not requiring that they participate in the enterprise zone. We will encourage that they participate because they can layer these incentives with other incentives. And all of downtown is, the CCMU zoning district is an enterprise zone, as well as other sections of the city. When we look at just the city center, and these are the larger grants of 150 to 250 in amount of grants for the larger projects that range up to 750. There is a priority funding area identified as a 1-block radius from Public Square, and there's a map in the packet. This again was a part of the original first third. It doesn't require prioritization, but gives the ability to prioritize projects that are closer to the urban improvement project and closer to Public Square.
This is the map you're referring to, I'm assuming?
Yes,
Is this the same exact map that we used for the first third program?
it is. So it's 1 block of Public Square, but not a linear block. Do we want to discuss that at all, or continue?
I guess for me, I don't, it's odd that we split the blocks. I mean, I understand the rationale that, you know, one faces another street, but I don't know, it just seems odd that we split the blocks in the manner that it's drawn. I mean, some of these properties, the line goes right through the property.
We could take a look at the rationale behind that originally and see if we can make
I would just either step
minor
out or step in
adjustments.
so it's clear.
Right, I agree with you. Okay. Again, on page 3, the properties for city center only grants, the property's core systems need to be upgraded to the same standards of the city's PEP program. So when we're looking at the larger grants, we're asking for the upgrades of HVAC systems, lighting, fire separation, accessibility to the same level that we do in our PEP program. And the core systems include a requirement for sprinkler systems. With City Center, because of the larger scale grants, they're reviewed first by a committee, and then we bring recommended applications forward to you for final approval. So the approval process on the large grants is with you as the elected group. Now looking at citywide grants, unlike City Center, this does not require the core systems like the PEP program, and it does not require sprinklers. Some of these items might be required based on building permit and depending on the project, but it's not a requirement of the grant. And in this case, all of the other same guidelines apply. Applications are reviewed by the committee, and the committee makes the approval for the smaller grants. And that is how we did it with the original First Third program. Should I pause if there's any questions on those two components?
Looks good to me.
Okay. The rental rehab, I'm on page 4. The rental rehab is a new component, and this provides grants of $7,500 with $15,000 match for a $22,500 or above projects. And the goal is for rehab of rental properties to market rate rentals. And I want to make a quick clarification that these are grants of $7,500, not up to $7,500. I think they should be the full $7,500.
I agree.
Okay. And then general guidelines, same set as what we had previously, that nonprofits are ineligible, acquisition costs are not considered part of project costs, grant approval needs to be obtained at the start of the project. We give an approval letter dispersed at the back end and requires the 2-to-1 match. Some specific guidelines that we put into this component are that existing rental properties are eligible, and they must be registered with the Rental Facilities Program, which is the rental license program. They could be mixed-use properties where all of the upper floors are residential and only the first floor is commercial. And the grants would be limited to 1 per developer per fiscal year. We're looking at projects that convert owner-occupied homes to rental properties as being ineligible. So if you're
Say that again?
if you're an owner-occupied home, home ownership to rental would be ineligible.
Okay, I got you. The one before that, though, so you're only allowed 1 per year per
Per developer.
Seems odd.
To try to spread the funding out among our various landlords, given that the amount of the grant is $7,500, could a single developer apply for nearly the full pot across various properties?
I guess I'm thinking of an instance, let's take, was it Locust Street? I don't know. Pick a place where there's like 3 or 4 in a row, you know, where there are a number of them attached. You know, and that entity comes in and says, hey, I'm gonna take these 3. Because a lot of times downtown you have these, you know, these areas where you got a number of apartment buildings that are attached to one another and they may have an interest in sort of doing all 3 at once. I would hate to say, well, you know, great idea, but we only are gonna give you, you know, a grant for 1 building at a time. I can see a developer going, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, especially for my financing if I'm trying to redevelop, you know. I would.
So is there some number that we would limit it to other than 1 per developer? I think it's probably important to have some limit, given that the pool of funds for this is $50,000, with each grant being $7,500.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I would just hate to miss that type of opportunity. I'm thinking of like the places across from Alms House, you know, where you've got sort of that row, you know, and if you can, if if this type of program had the ability to take a row like that, where a developer comes in and says, I'm gonna do all 4 of these at once, because it makes better business fiscal sense for them and their investment and their banking and the, construction and the contractors, all to be at that one place at one time in a single year, doing all the roofs that are connected and all of that stuff. I'd much rather have that ability to capture that opportunity, you know what I mean, for them to do that in one fell swoop than to say, you can do this one this year, and that one next
Could the
year.
exception be contiguous properties or something like that?
Yeah, like something like that would be
Like,
great.
Maybe, if it's up to 3,
like that.
like contiguous properties
Yeah.
or something like,
Yeah.
yeah. And just make that an exception, otherwise it would only be 1 per developer, if they're all over town.
Yeah, they're all
and
over, yeah, that's,
If
Yeah,
they were
that's a
doing
good
something like
idea.
that, though, would they have the opportunity to apply for the citywide grant? I mean, you're getting in the $25,000
It's not for
yeah, but that's for
residential.
commercial.
commercial only.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
yeah.
So we
okay.
can
First floor has to be
edit
commercial.
that
Yeah.
with the exception of contiguous properties. Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the citywide home ownership grant program, right?
No, we're on rental
No,
rehab.
Councilman.
I was talking about the citywide redevelopment grant program, but if that's commercial only, then,
But there is the home ownership one.
the home ownership one, yeah,
Without
but
apply to
that,
this.
Yeah,
that's a different.
That's different,
it's
right.
for a different purpose.
yep.
Right.
Okay.
Following the renovations, that they would provide us with a lead paint certificate for in properties constructed prior to 1978. And then we're recommending that the committee makes approvals following their review of the applications for this size grant. Any additional thoughts or questions on this component? And then the 4th component is the home ownership grant program. This provides 7,500 grants for home ownership to be used for either down payment or rehab, and it is citywide. It was part of the original First Third grant program, and most recently it's been continued through some state grant funding. 2 changes to the previous program that we heard from our July meeting. We eliminated city center versus citywide components of the past program, so there's no longer qualifiers for city center. It's simply the qualifiers that we had previously for citywide. And we added a unit reduction component. Let me walk you through that. So the requirements of this, I'm on page 4, are grants paid at settlement and requires the purchase of a single-family dwelling built before 1960 and vacant for 12 months. Or the new unit reduction component is that it requires a rental dwelling consisting of 2 or more units, and upon purchase by the program applicant, to be converted to a single-family owner-occupied unit within 6 months of settlement. So that's the new unit reduction component. Reduction of existing rental units that are not in conjunction with the purchase of a property for home ownership would be ineligible. The grant is a loan secured by a mortgage and forgiven when the owner occupies as a primary residence for 5 years. It's the same as what we currently have, and can be used for either down payment or rehab and a range of types of repairs, from windows, roof, HVAC, additions, electrical work, electrical system work, exterior, permanent kitchen updates. And these applications are currently reviewed by staff, and we're recommending that staff would make the approvals for this component. So those are the highlights of the key guideline components of each of the 4 proposed programs. And we would make the one edit that you have recommended and take a look at the map, and then come back at the special session on August 21st for approval.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. And I think these will be very welcomed by the community and by the, by both the homeownership and the rental landlords and our commercial community. So I applaud you for putting this program together.
So the change you're talking about, that's reducing the,
10 to
citywide grant
5.
5,000. And then, did we decide anything about the, number of units? Do we want to limit it to one developer for the?
We're gonna write the
Contiguous.
exception. If you have three, I guess 3 or more contiguous properties, that would be an exception.
Okay.
Right.
And then what else? Was there one other change?
Just the map.
Take a look at the map.
Three or more, up to 3.
I've always said up to 3
Oh,
that are
well,
contiguous.
Okay, just up to 3.
Right, up
It's
to
not
3
like
that
it
are
was-
contiguous. I mean, you're talking,
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, I don't know.
26.
Yeah, I don't know either,
You know,
so.
I mean, I don't know what somebody out there.
yeah, I
Well, how
understand.
about if we just say contiguous?
Say contiguous.
Well, that would be all duplexes then,
Yeah, let's say
so.
up to 3 for now and see what comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. And then the change from the 10,000 to 5,000 minimum.
right.
And Jill, just on your chart, the first page, well, it's page 2 really, the rental property rehab, you do have grants up to 7,500. You want to change that
Yes,
to 7,500, okay.
right. Grants of 7,500.
Right.
Right.
You don't
Right.
want somebody coming in for
Yeah,
1,000
right.
bucks or something, yeah.
Yep.
You're
Right.
not gonna get the fix-up you want.
Well, yeah, you're not going to get the market rate improvements for that anyway, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you, very good.
City Administrator's comments.
Just that we do have a short meeting tonight because it is National Night Out at 5:30 to 8:30 at Fairgrounds Park tonight.
Stole my thunder again.
You can make it more exciting than that.
Lou?
May have stole your thunder, but I'm afraid the good Lord may be providing us.
I hope not.
That's
It is
all.
the 35th annual, so that's 35 years, so it's wonderful.
See you there.
Kristen? Cool. All right. That's
Thanks,
it. We're
everyone.
adjourned. See you next week.
Good job.